G'day guys, how's it going? My name's Big Pop and today I'll be doing some battles in the Open Master League. The main showcase of this video will be my 15-15-14 Shiny Reshiram. I had a lot of fun with this team. It's definitely not the most meta team, but it's super fun to run and can surprise some opponents. Please like and subscribe, and without any further delay, let's hop into the battles and have some fun. Heading straight into the first match, we have Reshiram into a Giratina. I really like this lead. We're not running Fire Fang, we're running the recommended Dragon Breath, so we are doing super effective damage while they are doing neutral with their Shadow Claw. In comes a Terrakion. We don't really know what to do in this matchup. They bait with the Sacred Sword. Obviously the Rock Slide would have done super effective damage because of our Fire subtyping, so we make a quick switch into Lugia. We do have to fear these Rock Slides, and these Rock Slides absolutely hit like a truck from Terrakion because it has a pretty nutty attack stat, but we can take the hits pretty well because Lugia is just too thick. We take 2 Rock Slides, we're at 2 Sky Attacks. We're going to fire these off and hopefully deal some serious damage or get some shields. Down goes the Terrakion. We're still at 2 even shields each. They send in Melmetal. Obviously this team doesn't really like to see Melmetal. If we can land a Fusion Flare or get off a Superpower, it looks pretty good, but Melmetal has such great coverage and is so insanely spammy. We send in our Landorus. We can absorb whatever they have. It's double Iron Bash, which is pretty spicy. Well, I wouldn't say spicy, but I'm just so used to seeing Rock Slide and Superpower. Anyway, in comes the second double Iron Bash, just spamming these out like nothing else. In comes the third double Iron Bash. We are going to shield to preserve some health on the Landorus. Back comes in the Giratina, so we switch into Reshiram, get a few more Dragon Breaths off, and we're going to shield up the, hopefully, Shadow Ball. It's the Shadow Ball. We farm up to almost 2 Fusion Flares. We're going to fire off the first one. This should be doing a nice amount of damage. Gets the shield, actually, which is really good. They might have thought it was a Draco Meteor or a Crunch. We're going to send off the second Fusion Flare. Come on, we get the second shield, which is really good for us. Now we're at an even shield scenario. I definitely didn't want to have that Melmetal alive in the back with more than 1 shield. In comes the Shadow Ball, down we go. In comes Landorus, we overfarm with a few more mud shots. We send off the Stone Edge. This should be doing a nice amount of damage. Back comes in the Melmetal, we get off the Superpower. This should be KOing the Melmetal. In comes Superpower, good game. Hopping into the next match, we have Reshiram into a Mamoswine. So we don't really mind this matchup. Obviously the Avalanches would be neutral and the high horsepowers would destroy us, but they switch into a Swampert. We make a switch into Lugia. In comes the Hydro Cannon. We can absorb these like an absolute champ, like Rocky Balboa. In comes the second Hydro Cannon. These Hydro Cannons definitely will quickly add up, but Lugia is just such a great Pokemon with the Dragon tail. The damage really adds up and we get to these Sky Attacks pretty quickly. In comes Sky Attack number 1. That gets them into the pretty deep red. Are we just going to let this go again? We want to hold on to these shields. That gets us into the yellow, but we don't, like, Lugia is unbothered. We take out the Swampert. What's going to come in next? It's back comes in the Mamoswine. So we're going to send off this Sky Attack. It should do a decent amount of chip damage. Gets a shield, actually, which is really positive for us. These Powdered Snows are really adding up. They get to the Avalanche. We're just going to let the Lugia go down. We have better options in the back to do some nice damage. I think we're going to send in the Reshiram. The Dragon Breath damage here will do a nice amount of damage, and we have the really threatening Fusion Flare. We're going to throw up the shield, fearing the high horsepower. We get baited with the Avalanche, which would have only done neutral. They send in Togekiss, so we're going to send off the Fusion Flare and do some nice damage. I do kind of miss running Overheat on my Reshiram. I did use an Elite TM to get Fusion Flare, but I used to love just absolutely nuking things with Overheat, and I've actually considered TMing away Fusion Flare for Overheat because I think people wouldn't expect it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should I keep Fusion Flare or should I bring back Overheat? Anyway, back into the battle. We have our Landorus up against that Togekiss. The Stone Edge obliterates that thing out the sky. We're going to send off the Superpower against the Mamoswine, which should be securing us the win. It gets the shield. All we need to do now is come in with the Reshiram, send off this Fusion Flare, and that should be sending the Mamoswine back to the Ice Age. Good game. Moseying on along here, we have Reshiram into a Zacian. We don't really mind this matchup. Obviously the close combats will do a nice amount of damage, but we don't have to worry about Play Rough because of our Fire typing, and we don't really have to worry about Wild Charge either because of our Dragon typing. We do get the Fusion Flare through, which is really good for us. Now we're expecting the double close combat. I should have switched into Lugia here to catch the second one. Unfortunately, I was too slow on the trigger, so we're just going to have to shield up the close combat, and we're expecting them to switch. They switch into a Groudon. We have 2 good answers in the back. We send in the Lugia, because Lugia can absorb everything Groudon throws. The Fire Punches do eventually add up accumulatively, but we can take heaps of them, and our Dragon Tail really starts to hurt that Groudon. In comes Fire Punch number 2. Still does a nice amount of chip damage, because Groudon has such a high attack stat. It's such a monster. It's definitely one of the elite titans of the Master League, a must-have. In comes the third Fire Punch. We're farming up boatloads of energy. We're at about 2 Sky Attacks. In comes Sky Attack number 1. That almost takes out Groudon. They switch into a Mamoswine. We're going to farm up all the way to the Aeroblast, and we're going to full send it with the Aeroblast. I hope this lands. Come on, Lugia. It doesn't land, but we do get a shield. We make the quick switch into Reshiram, setting off the fusion flare. Ooh, we can't quite get the result as same result as last game, but it does get an ever so important shield. We are going to shield up, fearing the high horsepower. It's just the avalanche. It would have taken us out regardless, so obviously they use the lesser energy move. They get to the second avalanche, taking us out. Back comes in Lugia. Hopefully we can get to a sky attack before they get to a avalanche. This Mamoswine's looking like it's absolutely cleaning up the game, but just wait for Landorus to come in. Landorus, we're going to overfarm with energy, get to the superpower. This should be taking out the Mamoswine, and then all we need to do is just unleash the Landorus. What's going to come in next? It's the Zacian. All we need to do is get to the Stone Edge. We get to the Stone Edge. This will be taking out the Zacian. Landorus is putting in absolute work. It's also one of the best Pokemon for the Master League. Back comes in Groudon. Can we survive the Precipice Blades? This will be absolutely massive. We survive with a sliver of HP. We get to the superpower, but we mudshot down. Keeping things moving here, we have our shiny Reshiram, almost a Shundo, into a Excadrill. This is obviously a horrible matchup. Excadrill just gets to moves way too quickly. You know, it has no right to get to moves this quickly. Plus, they all do so much damage and are super effective. In comes the Drill Run. We're going to send off the Fusion Flare, hopefully get a shield, and then my goal, whenever I played these matches, was to try and catch a Drill Run onto Lugia. We farm up, we catch a Drill Run onto Landorus. This should be a Drill Run. It's just the Drill Run, so that does not very effective damage. We have given up Switch Advantage, unfortunately. In comes Mewtwo. We get to the Stone Edge, but I think we lost CMP. I'm not quite sure. In comes the Psy Strike. That does just disrespectful damage to Landorus, but we do get to the Stone Edge, hopefully grabbing a shield or dealing some damage. We deal some damage. Down goes Landorus with an even shield scenario here. We come in with Reshiram. I think we should have come in with Lugia. That was a bit of a misplay, because they probably might have baited with a Psy Strike and we would have been in a better position, but unfortunately now we've had to use a shield. Now we send in the Lugia, trying to catch another Psy Strike. It is the Psy Strike, which is really good for us. Down goes Mewtwo. Back comes the Exca. Exca obviously has a great matchup against Lugia. Rock Slides will really add up, although it doesn't hit as hard as, say, a Terrakion with the Rock Slide. Definitely accumulates. We're at 2 Sky Attacks just about. We should be able to hang on through one more Rock Slide. Lugia hangs on, and we get to the move. In comes Sky Attack. This should be doing a nice amount of damage. It gets Exca super duper low. In comes a Dragonite, so we're going to just send off the second Sky Attack before we get KO'd. This should be doing a nice amount of chip damage. In comes Reshiram. We go for the Fusion Flare. I'm questioning if I could have got to the Draco Meteor, but I'm sure they were almost at a Dragon Claw. They had a shield anyway, so I think it's redundant. This will be taking out the Reshiram and taking out the Lugia, and that'll be a good game to my opponent. Yep, in comes Lugia. We get Dragon Breath down. Skipping into the next match, we have Reshiram into a Giratina. As I said earlier, I do love this matchup. The Dragon Breaths really shred through that Giratina, just, you know, doing so much super effective damage while their Shadow Claws are only doing neutral. We're going to send off the Fusion Flare, hoping they think it's a crunch. They think it's a crunch and shield that up. Now we have them in the deep yellow. My strategy here is to shield because I find most Giratinas just full send for the Shadow Ball, and hopefully now we're in a position to farm down. Unfortunately, we can't farm down, but I know we can take a Shadow Ball. So we take that Shadow Ball in the chin, and we carry on. In comes a Togekiss. We're able to get to the neutral Fusion Flare. This should be doing just over half, which is really good for us. Gets it into the yellow before we go down. A few more Dragon Breaths to fill it, polish it off. In comes Lugia. Lugia is farming up with the Dragon Tail. We should be able to get to the Sky Attack. We're going to overfarm. So we sneak the Dragon Tail through when they throw their Ancient Power. That does a decent amount of damage. Now we're at the Sky Attack. This should be getting the Togekiss pretty much into a farm down range for the Dragon Tail. It takes them out. In comes Mewtwo. Now we're in a bit of a tricky situation. Obviously, this Mewtwo can pretty much take us out with a Psy Strike from this range. We're so low. Oh, we'd be able to hang on through a Psy Strike, but they are most likely running the double Legacy moveset, which I find most Mewtwo's are. Very rare I find one running Focus Blast. So we're going to assume it's running Shadow Ball and try and catch that onto the Landorus. They send the Psy Strike anyway, which gets us into the low red. We have a shield. We're going to throw that up. In comes the Psy Strike. We're at a Stone Edge. We're going to throw the Stone Edge. This should be doing getting a shield. Doesn't get a shield. They actually don't have shield, so my apologies. Does massive damage onto the Mewtwo. Gets them to a nice Dragon Tail farm down range for Lugia, and good game. Moving along here, we have our Reshiram leading all these matches against another Giratina. So I think this is like the third Giratina we've seen. It's really positive for us. Whenever I see a Giratina, I feel really confident I can take the match. Reshiram's absolutely dealing some good damage with the Dragon Breath. We know we can absorb the Shadow Ball, and we threaten with the potential crunch. They're sending a Kyogre, which is definitely a Pokemon I don't want to see, but we do have the Draco Meteor. Unfortunately, they shield it, probably suspecting the Draco Meteor. So we switch into Lugia, and we start dealing that neutral damage with the Dragon Tail. We are expecting a surf. It's just the surf. I do kind of fear the blizzard or the thunder, but we know that takes a little bit longer to get to. So we're just going to send off the sky attack and do a nice amount of damage. That gets Kyogre into a nice farm down range. We know we can take one more surf, but we do have 2 shields, so we might as well start using them. It's the thunder, so very fortunate we did use a shield. Now we can farm down and come out of this matchup with energy. What's going to come in next? Let's see. It's the Giratina. So we're going to full send the aeroblast and hopefully one-shot that thing into oblivion. In comes the aeroblast. They shield that up, unfortunately, so we send in Reshiram, get some chip damage with the Dragon Breath before we go down. Then we should be able to send in Landorus and farm down with the Mudshot. It's a very ambitious Mudshot farm down, or a few more Dragon Tails. Now we try and farm down. It's a Landorus in the back, so this game should be in the bag. This will be KOing the Excadrill and taking the win. Good game to my opponent. Back comes in Giratina. Good game. Heading into the next match, we have our Reshiram into a shiny Giratina. Such a beautiful shiny. I wish I rated it more, but I just didn't have the money. Anyway, back into the battles. We're doing some nice damage with our Dragon Breath, farming up to the Fusion Flare, and we're just going to take the Shadow Ball like a champ. My strategy was to just take the Shadow Balls because I'm hoping eventually one will bait with the Almost Wind and we know we can take it, but I just kept getting hit with the Shadow Ball. Anyway, we send off the Draco Meteor, we send in the Landorus against the Dialga, a very advantageous matchup, and we're going to bait with the Stone Edge. We are going to shield here, fearing the Draco Meteor, and the Iron Head hits like a truck anyway. Landorus is very squishy. Anyway, in comes the first Stone Edge. It doesn't get a shield, which is really unfortunate, so we're going to farm up, get to the second Stone Edge, and this should be KOing the Dialga. In comes Stone Edge, down goes Dialga. What's going to come in next? I think it's the Giratina. Back comes in into Giratina. Can we get to another Stone Edge? We get to the third Stone Edge. So many Stone Edges, we've shut down an international airport by this point. That gets a shield, that's very important. Now we feel very comfortable to let Landorus go down and trust our backline. Down goes Landorus, in comes Lugia, they switch into Exca. Now we're in a great position to farm up. We can take these Rock Slides, so we're going to take this Rock Slide on the chin. In comes the Rock Slide, we take that. We're going to keep farming. We switch into Reshiram, hoping to catch a Drill Run, or Rock Slide. Unfortunately, we're unable to, but we do get to the Aeroblast anyway. This will be dealing massive damage to the Excadrill. We get the boost, which is so good. We're going to take this Rock Slide. Now, just one more Dragon Tail. We have a bit of energy. In comes the Giratina. We do have a shield. This game should be in the bag. We get to the Sky Attack. That should be the finishing blow to this team. Good game to this trainer. Thank you. Heading into our second last match of the day, we have Reshiram into Excadrill. Obviously, Excadrill is a bit of a nightmare lead. Everything they have is super effective, and everything they have hits like a freight train. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're going to send in the Drill Run. That gets us into the low red. We're going to fire off the Fusion Flare and hopefully just use Reshiram as a way to get shields and maybe save him for later as a third shield. They are almost farming down, so we realize this and we switch into Landorus. They're going to send in the Rock Slide, which does do neutral damage. Unfortunately, we weren't able to catch the Drill Run then. They send in Kyogre, which is super unfortunate. That thing is the bane of my existence, and the worst thing is, I rated it so hard, I have 350 XL candies, but no Kyogre to power up. I wish I had one. Anyway, we send in Lugia, we're Dragon Tailing away. This should just be the Surf, but unfortunately, what do you know, it's the Thunder. But you know, Lugia he just shakes that off like it's Static Shock. They send in the Excadrill. We are in KO range here, so we are going to shield this up. In comes the Rock Slide. We farm up one more Dragon Tail. We're at 2 moves now. In comes the Sky Attack. This should be doing a nice amount of damage to the Excadrill. Now we're going to farm up and try and catch the Drill Run onto Reshiram. We catch the Rock Slide, not the Drill Run. In comes the Rock Slide. Thank you, Reshiram. I salute you for taking that damage. In comes Dragonite. We're going to full send the Aeroblast. Hopefully they no-shield this. They smartly shield it, which is really unfortunate. We should have baited. Hey, but what can you do? You can't live with regrets. We do get to the Sky Attack, but I think it's going to be inconsequential. We have lost this match. Good game to this trainer. Moving on into the last match of the day with our shiny Reshiram into a Heatran. I love seeing a Heatran in the Master League. I myself have a Shundo, and I fantasize about when it gets its signature move Magma Storm, or if they finally give Fire Spin a much needed buff. Anyway, we're going to send off our first Fusion Flare. That gets the shield. Now, we are fearing the Stone Edge, so we're going to shield this up. I know myself as a Heatran user. Most run Stone Edge. We get to the second Fusion Flare. This should be threatening to get the second shield, and that would put us at a nice shield advantage. In comes it. We get to the shield. We are going to no-shield this time. We're not fearing the Stone Edge. We don't mind if Reshiram goes down. He's done his job. He's gotten 2 shields. They switch into Dragonite, and now we have the perfect antidote to a Dragonite, that being a Lugia. We're going to farm up with the Dragon Tail. We're going to absorb any damage this Dragonite throws at us, and we're going to come out of this matchup on top. We're Dragon Tailing away. We are at a Sky Attack. We're just going to take whatever move this is. It's just the Dragon Claw. We take that like a champ. Now we can farm all the way down. We have heaps of energy. We're expecting the Heatran to come back in. We're going to send the aeroblast. This should be getting it into the low red or potentially KOing. We get it into the very low red. One more mud shot. Down goes Heatran, and in comes a Metagross. We're in a great position here. Obviously, Landorus is extremely squishy, but we just need to get to a bunch of superpowers and mudshot down this Metagross. In comes the second superpower. This will be getting it super low. A few more mudshots should secure the win, and good game to this trainer. Thank you. Thank you all so much for watching. I had a blast running this team. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.